Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mark. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Mr. Khalid Al-Yahmadi. Mr. Khalid is the Chief Investment Officer of Al-Madina Investment. He has been the architect of some of the investment structures done in Oman. Among the landmark transactions were the Tilal Real Estate Fund. That was the only real estate fund that was launched in Oman till today. It is only apt that we have him here to share with us his valuable experience on this landmark transaction. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Khalid.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم مرة ثالثة الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving us the chance at Al-Madina to share our modest experience in setting up the very first Omani Riyal denominated Capital Markets Authority of Oman regulated real estate fund in the country, which is the Tilal Fund. My presentation, I'm dividing the presentation into four main sections. In the first section of the presentation, we will talk about the Islamic fund industry in general, and then we'll zoom into real estate funds in particular, and into Sharia-compliant real estate funds, and finally we'll share with you our case study, which is the creation or the establishment of the Tilal Fund. The global Islamic funds, as per the research of Kuwait Finance House 2011, there were about 876 funds, Islamic funds in total, having a total of 60 billion USD as asset under management. That represents, of course, a modest 4.5% of the overall Islamic finance assets of 1.3 trillion as of the end of 2011. However, this number is expected to grow by the end of this year to about 63.5 billion US dollar, of course, fueled by the economic growth of all this oil producing and commodity-based economies, as well as by the number of countries just like Oman and other countries where the Islamic finance is being introduced and more of Islamic banking and finance activities is taking place all over the globe. That 63.5 is represent about 3.9% still of the total expected Islamic assets by the end of this year, which is expected to reach $1.6 trillion by end of 2012. Again, we can see from this chart here that the Islamic banking assets still dominate the Islamic finance industry, recording around 80% of the total assets of the Islamic finance industry. As per the asset classes distribution of the Islamic funds, of course, equities dominate the Islamic funds with about 47% of the asset under management is mainly in equity side. Money market funds accounts for about 22%, whereas the real estate funds at 9% of the total asset under management in the Islamic funds. As for the performance, the real estate funds come second after the Sukuk funds of last year of 2011. There was 6% average return for Sukuk funds compared to an average return of real estate funds of about 4.4%. Of course, real estate investing is familiar to everybody, and most of Islamic finance banks and most of their portfolios, of course, relies into real estate. But we're talking about real estate funds in particular as an alternative investment that could be pursued in countries like Oman, because most of the individuals, we have individuals investing in real estate, but as single individuals investment. However, here we're trying to promote collective scheme investing. With collective scheme investing means we mean investing through real estate funds, through real estate investment trusts. Those collective schemes, what they do is they pull the capital from different sorts of investors, either individuals, institutions. With that, the investor is able to acquire, of course, more properties, achieving better diversification of risk and return. And of course, those structures compared to single individual investing provide better tax shelters, or you can really manage your taxes more efficiently through those funds, because funds in general are tax exempt. And of course, you have access to professional fund managers to take care of your investment. That being said, we would like to just shed a light on the typical structure of Islamic real estate fund, which is more or less similar to a conventional real estate fund. However, there are some distinctive features of real estate funds, the most important of which is the oversight of the Sharia board requirements in real estate, the Sharia-compliant real estate funds. Of course, among the responsibility of a Sharia board is to, at the beginning, to issue the fatwa on the on the fund that it is Sharia compliant, so that Islamic investors or Islamic banks or whomever is pursuing Sharia investment activities would rely on this fatwa. Another responsibility of the Sharia fatwa is to make sure that all the documentations aligned with the Sharia requirements, starting from the PPM, going into the contracts or the lease contracts with the tenant, and also covering the relationship between the fund manager as well as, the fund manager with the investors. Another area is that they make sure that the takaful is the protection that is used for insurance on those properties. In some countries, of course, when there's no takaful, they revert to the conventional insurance, but which is, as we just saw in the previous sessions, that insurance is not Sharia compliance, and so takaful has to be in place, and so the Sharia board would make sure that takaful is also used. Okay, also the Sharia board's some of the responsibilities to make sure that all the activities that go within the premises of the property has to be Sharia compliant. And I say all, but there's also some jurisdictions that will allow some tolerance level of non-Sharia compliant activities. Given an example, for example, in Malaysia, they allow up to 20% of the rental income to be non-Sharia compliant if compared to the overall income for the fund or for the property. So up to 20% is acceptable. Of course, this is when they acquire a property with existing tenant. But if the property is already in the premises of the fund, there's no new contract should be initiated with non-Sharia compliance activities. If there's also excess liquidity from time to time with the fund, then those liquidities has to be also invested according to Sharia principles. And finally, continuous Sharia screening and Sharia audit. Sharia screening before, of course, buying the property or adding the property to the fund, and Sharia audit is subsequent to make sure that still the property is, or the investing in that property is still Sharia compliant. The other distinctive feature of real estate fund is the external financing. If there is external financing needed, either at the fund level or at the individual property level, then it has to be obtained according, again, to the Sharia, one of the Sharia contracts. It's available. There could be an ijara contract, murabaha, musharaka, istisna, diminishing musharaka, or any other Sharia contracts. As for the relationship between the fund manager and the investors or the capital providers, there are, of course, many different Sharia contracts that can be adopted or applied. Here I'm just mentioning two examples. One of them could be a mudaraba contract or a mudaraba agreement between the fund manager and the capital providers, in which the investor are Rabbul Mal, or the capital providers, and the fund manager is called the mudarib, or the one who will be doing the investment and making sure that the money is invested according to the requirements of the laws of the Sharia. Profit sharing is based on a predetermined profit sharing ratio. So before getting into the agreement, there will be an agreement between the fund manager and the capital providers as how the profit will be shared, and that has to be fixed at the beginning before any investment is done, so everybody knows by the time the profit is made how much is for the capital providers and how much is for the fund manager. As for the losses, according to this contract, losses is all borne by the capital provider, because this is a mudaraba, and so the capital provider would bear the loss, whereas the mudarib only loses his efforts. It's not only, of course, efforts and time spent on that is also is very valuable. But anyways, in terms of monetary loss, all the monetary loss goes to the capital providers, but not the fund manager. Some Sharia scholars also allow the mudarib to charge some management and performance fees. It depends on, again, the jurisdictions. Another possible Sharia contract that can be adopted for the fund management is the wakala, or wakala with musharaka combination. Wakala is an agency agreement where the fund manager is acting as wakil in behalf of the capital providers to invest those funds. And if the fund manager opted to also put money in the fund, then a musharaka contract has to be signed, whereby the fund manager also becomes a musharik into the profit. And in that case, profit sharing ratio, again, has to be determined at the beginning. And in this case, losses will be also shared, but not as per the profit sharing ratio, but as per the capital contributed by each party. So if the fund manager contributed 20%, then he bears 20% of the loss, and the remaining loss, of course, to the capital providers. Going forward, that is, in general, we've talked about the fund management, the Islamic funds, real estate funds in particular, and Sharia-compliant real estate funds in more specific. Now is that we'd like to share with you our modest experience in setting the very first real estate fund in Oman. It was a Riyal-Omani denominated fund, and of course domiciled in Oman and regulated by the CMA, the Capital Market Authority. So in about 2006, our subsidiary company, Al-Madina Real Estate, one of the pioneer real estate investment development companies in Oman, decided to go and construct one of the biggest mixed-use complexes in Al-Khawair area. And we wanted to give opportunity for the retail investors who are normally deprived from really investing in those kind of projects, which are like mega projects. Normally, these are like by investment, the institutional investor or high net worth investors. But in this case, at Al-Madina, we wanted to give an opportunity to even the retail investors to come aboard and be part of this development that we came up with in Al-Khawair area. So we decided to set up the first real estate funds. But because it was really the first real estate funds, of course, every time when something that is the first time, there will be some challenges that you would have to deal with in order to have your objective reached. So some of the challenges we really faced at the beginning when we wanted to set up this fund is that there was no framework for real estate funds. So all the funds that are already regulated by the capital market authorities were equity funds, but there was no guideline for real estate funds. So we had to work for months with the CMA to amend the framework and the guidelines so that it can accommodate real estate funds as well. Another challenge we face is during the fundraising period. As per the law here in Oman, the fund manager cannot really invest in the fund per se. So when we went to our investors, after we presented them, the question was, how much you as a fund manager putting in the fund? And the answer, of course, was 0, because the laws here do not allow the fund managers to invest in the fund for, of course, corporate governance issues. However, we fixed this problem through investing directly into as we'll see later, that we had to set up a special purpose vehicle to own the project, and so the fund manager and whomever else interested in investing in this project invested directly into the SPV rather than investing into the fund. A third issue that we faced was the accounting issue, which is IAS 15 and IFRIC 15, is that the real estate developers cannot recognize revenue until the project is fully completed. And so during the construction period from 2006, or during the period that the development was constructed, no revenue was recognized. And so we had to report an NAV, which is the net asset value of the fund, which is normally a measure that investor will be looking at. We had to report a decreasing NAV because we are booking the expenses, the running expenses, but no revenue was booked during that period. A third issue, of course, is the ownership that, funds in general are in Oman, or even I think internationally, are not allowed to just have direct ownership on the property. The laws here in Oman do not allow direct ownership of a fund, so you cannot have a fund in the title deed of a property. So an SPV, to solve this problem, an SPV was created. The typical, or the structure of the Tilal fund was like we had the investors on one side, a trustee has to be appointed, and Al-Madina investment, of course, was the fund manager, and of course the project that we underwent was the Tilal complex. So Tilal fund was created for this purpose. The first real estate fund in Oman, of course, launched early 2007. The capital at that time was $14.4 million, and preliminarily the amount primarily was invested in the TDC, which is the SPV company, the Tilal Development Company. The Tilal Development Company underwent the construction of this project that we called Tilal Complex, which was constructed on a plot of land in Al-Khuwair, size of which was 44 square meter. The project consisted of about 62,000 square meters of retail space, about 40,000 square meters of office space, and around 250 apartments, and about 116 units of service apartments, making it, of course, the biggest mixed-use complex in Muscat up to date. This is a very recent picture of this. I think most of you been to the complex. It's a mixed-use complex. There's offices. From this side, you see the apartment buildings, but the other far, there's the office building. And there are, of course, 2 stories of retail space, 162,000 square meters. As for the fund itself, we were able to secure about 105% return over the 5-year period for our investor. It's an average of 21% per annum. The highest NAV reach was 2 riyal and 89 paisa. Bear in mind that the initial NAV was, or the initial par value was 1 riyal. So this is an almost 105 above the par value. Last year also, we distributed dividends of 90% to our investors. And of course, our fund is due for closure by the end of this year. Some of the lessons and recommendations that we could share with you from this experience is that real estate investing is all about location. And so although we went through the financial crisis from 2008, 2009, but with that, because the project underhand is like in a very prime location, still we are able to reach our even better than expected return because of that. The other thing is transparency and reporting. Normally people will report in good time, okay, we have excellent NAV, we are doing this and that, but even if it's a bad time, we need to report, because that will make our investors, trust us and be happy to be associated with us. And hiding the truth is not going to solve the matter. So just go there, tell the client that, well, this is the situation, there's a financial crisis all over the world, and so at least we are going and we're constructing and we're continuing constructing our project, and finally we reached our objective. Yeah, just 2 more slides. Okay, so again, another thing is like building extensive network of skillful partners. You need to have association with tax advisors, real estate advisors, to help you select the best investments. Finally, this is not 100%, it's a percentage. I'm saying allocate certain percentage of the fund to retail. Don't just give everything to an institutional investor or high net worth. Retail investor has to be involved in that, because they are the people who really go and talk in the market about those kind of investments. Finally, there should be a clear exit strategy so that people, when they put money with you, they know exactly when and where to exit. By that, I conclude my presentation, and I thank you all for your attention.